Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be testing out a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Tsareena. Tsareena is a pure Grass-type Pokemon with the moveset of Magical Leaf, Grass Knot, and Stomp. Now, Magical Leaf is a pretty cool addition to its moveset, as I believe currently only Celebi in Pokemon Go can learn it. However, having Stomp as one of the two charge moves definitely does not bode well for this Pokemon's success. Either way, we're still going to test it out and see how it does. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Tsareena in action in the Great League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Registeel into Sableye. Now considering I have Medicham in the back, I am definitely happy to catch the Ghost-type Sableye on the lead. I farm up, my opponent tries to go for the CMP type, but I end up just continuing to overfarm. Foul play is going to connect, and now I'm going to return fire with the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon is not lethal from this health range, but it would get them quite low, so we do see a shield. Unfortunately, my Zap Cannon did not lower their attack. I go for Zap Cannon number 2, and I lose the CMP tie. My opponent goes for the foul play, my Registeel deep into the red, but able to hang on and make it to the second Zap Cannon. This is going to get my opponent quite low, and I finally do get the attack drop. My opponent is going to get the farm down. I'm going to send in Tsareena, basically just shield once and commit to the farm down. They fire off the return. Tsareena is fairly attack weighted, so that would do quite a lot of damage. My opponent sends in Galarian Stunfisk, so it looks like they may not have the greatest response to Tsareena in the back. I fire off the Grass Knot, send in Medicham, and they're going for a charge move. Perfectly fine by me. Medicham is going to be able to tank the Earthquake. In the back, my opponent has Azumarill. Azumarill is going to be met with the Psychic from the Medicham. Psychic will get some solid chip damage. Azu can very comfortably no shield here. Azu looking to overfarm, and they do. I'm not going to shield here. I am putting my full faith into Tsareena to try and close this game. Ice Beam, not quite able to KO, and they do get a farm down. Speaking of farm downs, I believe that's my only win con in this moment. I'm going to shield up the Ice Beam. Let's see, can we Magical Leaf down? Tsareena is able to get the farm down, and that should be game over. At this point, I should have just gone double Grass Knot. I go for the Stomp. Opponent calls the bait, but the Magical Leaf KOs as we secure the win. Picking up a tricky lead in the next match, Registeel into Shadow Dragonite. Now, Shadow Dragonite, definitely a bit of a core breaker for this team. They will make the superpower before I make the Zap Cannon. I decide to risk it, call a bait, it's the superpower, and that rocks the Registeel. I'm going to return fire with the Zap Cannon. They're debuffed, so they are going to commit the shield. Now I'm going to send in Medicham. I'm expecting them to try and go for a catch, and they do. My opponent is going to now counter switch into their Azumarill. Azu will be met with the Psychic here. Psychic will deal some solid chip damage, but this is a bit unfortunate alignment for me, as I would definitely prefer to see the Azumarill aligned against Tsareena. They fire off the Play Rough. Since I do have a shield advantage, honestly, I'm going to try and keep the Medicham healthy. I'm hoping that Medicham will have play versus whatever my opponent has in the back. Psychic is going to connect. They will make another charge move, but I'm just going to double shield and fully farm down. I still should not be in a range where a Dragon Claw can KO. I do know that the Dragonite has energy, so I farm down, leave with a bunch of energy, and I just have to watch that top right corner. In comes the Dragonite, so I'm going to be firing off the Ice Punch here. Ice Punch is going to get the shield. I go for Ice Punch number 2, but I end up losing CMP to the Dragonite. Dragonite goes for the Dragon Claw. That does get the Medicham very low, but Medicham with a sliver of HP, able to hang on. Go for the Ice Punch. That's going to KO. In the back is Galarian Stunfisk, and we're going to have to see, can Tsareena clutch here? The Stunfisk does have an energy lead, but they did have to take 3 counters to do so. They're going to be firing off a Rock Slide. Rock Slide does a lot of damage. Tsareena is very glassy. They're going for Rock Slide number 2. Now this is going to get me very low. Tsareena able to hang on, fire off the Grass Knot, and then honestly, to avoid being farmed down, I have to switch. In comes the Registeel going for the lock-on farm down, but I can't quite get there. They make the Rock Slide. The question is, can I tank a Mud Shot? I cannot, as we lose a heartbreaking game. Hopping into the next match, we see more Shadow Dragons on the lead. This time, it is Shadow Dragonair. Shadow Dragonair, despite the fact that the Dragon Breaths are resisted, can put up a heck of a fight versus Registeel. They fire off the Aqua Tail, and I'm going to return fire with the Focus Blast. Focus Blast almost assuredly going to be grabbing a shield. I do need to preserve the Reggie and safe switch into the Medicham eventually, in case they have a Noctowl. So I farm up, switch, and catch the Aqua Tail onto the Medicham. This way, if they have a Noctowl in the back, hopefully the Medicham can bait it out, but they're staying in with the Dragonair. This tells me that they may not have a flyer in the back, which should hopefully be good news for Tsareena. Here, I'm going to try and go for the farm down, but Dragonair with a sliver of HP, able to hang on, make another charge move, and because of my greed trying to go for the farm down, I'm forced to give up both shields. In comes a Water Gun Lantern. I fire off the Psychic. That's going to connect. My opponent looking for the farm down. Medicham able to hang on, make it to Psychic number 2. My opponent knows they can tank that, so they're going to let that through. I'm going to aggressively switch into Tsareena, and I'm going to be able to tank whatever they throw here, since both Surf and Thunderbolt are resisted. So we managed to get rid of the Lantern. They have a 1 HP Dragonair, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Vigoroth. I'm going straight for the Grass Knot here, recognizing that since I'm close to a Focus Blast on the Registeel, they are not going to be able to shield. I continue to farm, they're forced to fire off a Body Slam, and now I'm just going to send in the Medicham to counter down. So I'm going to send in Medi, they snipe with the Dragonair, and now can I lock on down before the Bulldoze? Opponent dies with the move. Picking up a fairly neutral lead in the next match, Registeel into Lantern. Honestly, not my most favorite lead to see because I'd much rather have the Lantern aligned against the Tsareena later in the match. They're going to be firing off a charge move right off the bat. I'm going to tank the Surf onto the Registeel and then save switch into Medi. My opponent is now going to send out Sableye, and that is absolutely awful. I was trying to bait out a Noctowl, as Medicham can win the Zero Shield versus Noctowl, but unfortunately, I bait out a Sableye, and this is not what I was hoping to see. My opponent massively overfarming lets me make a second Ice Punch, and because of that, I can actually take switch. So you know what? I'm going to give up both shields here. I'm going to fully sell out to try and take switch advantage, because if I get switch, then I get Tsareena aligned against the Lantern. I will be able to get the farm down, which is quite nice. My opponent sends in the Lantern. I'm going for the Psychic. I'm hoping they decide to shield this, but it's a Lantern. It's very bulky. They know they can tank that, so that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to tank. I send in Tsareena. In the back, my opponent has Dunsparce. Now, Dunsparce, up 2 shields, is quite scary here. They are going to be firing off the Rock Slide. As we've seen, Rock Slide does quite a bit of damage to Tsareena. I farm up, switch, and catch the Rock Slide onto Registeel. Okay, maybe there is life. I'm going to be firing off the Zap Cannon bait here, hoping for a potential attack drop. Zap Cannon is going to get the shield. We do get the attack drop. That is quite nice. Farming up, making it to the Focus Blast. Opponent ends up going for the extra. So I did throw on alignment there, which is a bit unfortunate. They're going to be firing off another charge move here. No shields remaining for me, so this Drill Run is going to connect, but it's debuffed. It can't KO. They have to send in the Lantern. Lantern firing off a charge move. This is going to be close. I should have the Stomp plus the Grass Knot. Stomp will KO the Lantern. The question is, can Grass Knot KO the Dunsparce? It's a CMP tie. This move has to KO so I can win. Firing off the Grass Knot. Dunsparce with 1 HP. Able to hang on. KO's Tsareena. And that's game over. We see a familiar lead in the next match. Registeel going up against Sableye. This is quite nice to catch on the lead, so hopefully that means they're going to be weak to the Medicham in the back. They're going to be firing off the Foul Play before I'm able to make it to a potential debuffing Zap Cannon. Foul Play is going to connect, and I'm going straight for the Zap Cannon. We know this is non-lethal, but it's definitely going to hurt. Zap Cannon lands, and we do get the attack debuff. That is quite nice. Sableye is going to make it to another Foul Play. This does appear to be a somewhat attack-weighted Sableye, as they are doing a lot of damage to my Registeel. I'm going to return fire with the Focus Blast. Focus Blast will be lethal. Opponent commits the shield. They leave with energy. I send in Medicham, and I get the snipe. Opponent did not throw their energy, and they bring in a Water Gun Lantern. This is a pretty neutral matchup, which cues me into the fact that if this is their best matchup in a Medicham, they're weak to Medi in the back. Their final Pokemon does not want to see Medi, so I need to use all available shields on the Medicham to try and make sure that Medicham can see that final Pokemon. Psychic is going to land. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Ice Punch. Ice Punch should be lethal from here. If they shield, they are weak, and they do. So I am absolutely double shielding the Medicham here, because I know Medicham will have play versus whatever they have in the back. And it's a Galarian Stunfisk. Let's go. I fire off the Psychic here. Psychic is resisted, but it does do incrementally more damage than if I went for the Ice Punch, and I do get the debuff chance. Here, I try and go for the Earthquake catch onto Tsareena. Opponent showing great patience. They're going to be firing off multiple Rock Slides, but unfortunately, it is just too little too late, as Tsareena will be able to tank the Rock Slide. We have the Stomp loaded. Stomp, not the greatest move in the world, but in this moment, it's what we need. Down goes the G-Fisk, and that is a good game. Picking up a Nightmare lead in the next match, Registeel into Charizard. Charizard basically beats this entire team. It can hit the entire team for super effective damage. So this was definitely an oversight in team building. My only hope is to stay in with the Registeel, double shield, and hope for Zap Cannon debuffs. So I shield up the first Blast Burn, returning fire with the Zap Cannon, getting the shield, and getting the first debuff. That is big, but honestly, I think I need double debuffs to have a chance to win the 2s here. So I will commit the shield, opponent going for another Blast Burn again, and I'm going for another Zap Cannon. We got one debuff. Can we get a second? Zap Cannon gets the second debuff, and now I can actually survive this Blast Burn. They're firing off the Blast Burn. I have no shields remaining, but this is double debuffed. Registeel tanks the Blast Burn and is able to fire off the Zap Cannon. This will KO, and down goes the Charizard, but our problems are not over as in comes Walrein, and Walrein gets a big farm down. I can align this onto my Medicham, which is quite nice, but the unfortunate thing is they have a pretty big energy lead. So they can fire off multiple Icicle Spears to get some chip damage, and then they can send in whatever they have in the back. They're going for Icicle Spear number 2. That is going to get the Medi-Low in the back. They have Toxapex. The opponent just has so many Tsareena counters. Where is Tsareena supposed to go? Here, I'm looking to farm up. Opponent waits a turn to make sure I don't catch, and they fire off the Brine. Brine will KO. In comes Tsareena, getting absolutely torn to shreds by Poison Jab. They're going to fire off a Brine. This is resisted, but Tsareena, as we've seen, is quite glassy. I need to farm up and get as close to back-to-back stomps as possible. I'm 2 Magical Leafs away. Can I live 3 Powder Snows? In comes the Walrein, and I die with the move. The terrible leads continue in the next match. Registeel into Swampert. I'm going to immediately save switch into Medicham. My opponent responds with an Umbreon. Now this is by no means a counter to Medicham, and I can actually take switch here, which is everything I need. They go for the foul play. I'm going to throw one counter and go for the Ice Punch to make sure that I'm throwing on optimal timing. Ice Punch doesn't do a lot of damage, but at this point, it's just a war of attrition, and that's a war that Medicham can win thanks to the pressure that I'm delivering with counter. I'm firing off another Ice Punch here. This will be getting them into the red health, and then I should be able to make it to yet another Ice Punch before they make the next foul play, and this will be lethal. Decision time for my opponent. They're going to let that through. Down goes Umbreon, and I have switch advantage. In the back, they have Noctowl, so it appears the opponent may have accidentally brought in the Umbreon when they meant to bring in the Noctowl. A misclick that is absolutely helpful for me. I land the Psychic just before I get KO'd, and I'm going to bring in the Registeel to deal damage to the Noctowl. They fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect. I continue to farm up, going for the Focus Blast, but the opponent makes a nice catch, catching it onto Swampert. Swampert takes a lot of damage from the Focus Blast. In comes Tsareena, deleting the Swampert with the Magical Leafs. In comes the Noctowl. Noctowl loses CMP to Tsareena, and they're going to have to shield the Stomp. Stomp gets the shield. At this point, Tsareena has done its job, got rid of the Swampert, and now Registeel can clean up the Noctowl in the back. In comes the Registeel. I know I tank any one move here, so I'm not going to shield. I'm going to let this go. Opponent baited with a Sky Attack, hoping I was going to use one of my 2 shields, but I had no such plans. Now I am going to start shielding as my health is starting to get quite low. They go for another Sky Attack. I'm going to return fire with the Focus Blast. This will be grabbing the final shield, and unfortunately for my opponent, they are just in a losing endgame here where they just cannot get to enough charge moves. I expend the final shield. They're going for another Sky Attack, hoping to make it to yet another, but unfortunately, they just do not have enough energy. Focus Blast will take down the Noctowl and secure the victory. Hopping into the final match, setting Registeel into Lantern. We've seen this lead before. Typically, I'm going to want to tank a move and then save switch into the Medicham to check and see if they have a Noctowl in the back, because Tsareena can do absolutely nothing against Noctowl. They're going for a charge move. I'm going to let this through. It is the Thunderbolt. I'm looking to switch into the Medicham. My opponent is going to respond with the Noctowl. Okay, this is honestly not bad because I know that I am able to win the Zero Shield here. I fire off the Ice Punch. That's going to get the Noctowl quite low. Noctowl is going to fire off a charge move here. I'm going to no shield with the Medicham. Sky Attack will not be enough to KO. I make another Ice Punch, and Ice Punch will allow me to win switch here unless they give up a shield. So I was able to bait out the Flying type, which is good. And on top of that, I'm now in a position where I have a shield advantage. They go for the Shadow Ball. I'm going to return fire with the Focus Blast. Tried to overfarm ever so slightly there. Focus Blast is going to be enough to KO the Noctowl. In comes the Lantern. I send in Tsareena. In the back, it's Galarian Stunfisk. Due to our typing, they do have to go for Rock Slide. Let's see, can Tsareena 2v1 in a 2-to-1 shield advantage situation? Rock Slide will be shielded. They're already at another Rock Slide. I will double shield here because I know that Rock Slide is what's going to do the most damage. I'm going for the Grass Knot. Let's see this damage onto Galarian Stunfisk. Grass Knot is going to connect, getting them into the red. I try and go for the Stomp. Unfortunately, I lag, and that causes my opponent to sneak an entire fast move for free, and they're going to make another charge move here. They make the Rock Slide. That's going to get me low. In comes the Lantern, and they snipe. Unfortunately, Tsareena is just too low. It's just too glassy of a Pokemon. I send in the Registeel, but it's too little too late, as Lantern will deal the fatal blow with the Surf, and that's a good game. All in all, Tsareena is a Pokemon that unfortunately its stats don't translate the best to go. Overall, Tsareena is a decently attack-weighted Pokemon, and in terms of Magical Leaf and Grass Knot, those are not bad moves, but unfortunately having Stomp in its moveset really does hurt it. So this is a Pokemon that you can get for your decks, but it's not one that I'd recommend building for Go Battle League. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.